president's approach to this election is very clear. Polarize mail-in voting, right, by questioning its integrity, get your people to turn out on Election Day, depress turnout generally, attempt to claim victory on election night before millions of those votes are counted, the mailed-in ones, because you know they're mostly from the Democrats, then use the courts to try and get those ballots tossed out under completely baseless accusations of fraud. It's a crazy, crazy scheme. It's vicious. But Republican legislators in swing states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are actively helping with the plan. I mean, their position, listen to this, is that they can't count ballots that arrive after Election Day because they have to know the winner by election night. At the same time, the same Republican lawmakers in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin have stood in the way of efforts to allow their states to pre-sort the mail-in votes so that they could produce a quicker count on election night. Right? They want this sort of liminal space of ballots uncounted. That's the key. And this is all in line with the Trump strategy, create maximum amounts of ambiguity for him and Trump TV and GOP lawyers to exploit. And now you have a Supreme Court justice taking up this same pastime. Just before the Senate confirmed Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court last night, it handed down a 5-3 decision to throw out mail-in ballots in Wisconsin that are postmarked by Election Day but arrive after the day, right? Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote an opinion that sticks out for how much it parrots Trump's talking points on mail-in ballots. Quote, states want to avoid the chaos and suspicions of impropriety that can ensue if thousands of absentee ballots flow in after Election Day and potentially flip the results of an election. What? That argument that votes should not be counted after Election Day for fear of impropriety and suspicions is so specious that when Trump tweeted out essentially the same argument minutes later, Twitter hid the tweet behind a warning saying it might be misleading about how to participate in an election. Now, Kavanaugh is one of 3 Supreme Court justices, along with Amy Coney Barrett and Chief Justice John Roberts, who were part of Bush's legal team during Bush v. Gore. And it appears that the model of that dubious victory is now in the minds of many of the right. Ron Klain bears the scars from the last presidential race decided by the Supreme Court. He was the general counsel, can you imagine that, on Al Gore's recount committee in 2000, and he joins me now. Ron, you have an interesting set of experiences from being the recount dude in Florida, the Ebola czar. You're now part of the Biden campaign. What's your reaction, having been in the trenches of the last brutal fight, to read those words by Justice Kavanaugh, this idea that, like, we have to know election night to watch what the president is doing? What's your reaction having lived through this?
Well, before Justice Brett Kavanaugh took the position he took in that opinion yesterday, lawyer Brett Kavanaugh stood in Florida and argued that votes could be added to the tally as late as Thanksgiving. In fact, if lawyer Brett Kavanaugh had not gotten votes added to the tally Thanksgiving weekend, Al Gore would have been president of the United States. Al Gore was set to go ahead on the recount that weekend, and Brett Kavanaugh and the Bush legal team went into courts, went into canvassing boards, and asked them to count votes that, by the way, had no postmarks at all on them, had no indicia of when they had been voted at all, and simply were sitting around, and he jammed into the tally. So there's no way to look at this as anything other than rank hypocrisy and a reversal of convenience by Justice Kavanaugh.
In my interest to bend over backwards, to be fair, I will say the role of an advocate and a justice is different. He had a client in that case in the Bush lawyers who were pursuing zealously their cause. He is now a justice. But there is something troubling about just, you know, the logic he uses is not that different necessarily on legal grounds than some of the other folks in that 5-3 decision, but that he goes out of his way to make these sort of specious claims. You know, Justice Kagan, I thought, had a good rebuttal. She says Justice Kavanaugh alleges that suspicions of impropriety will result if absentee ballots flow in after Election Day and potentially flip the results of an election. But there are no results to flip until all valid votes are counted. That, to me, is the key principle for all involved here.
Chris, I think you're right. Look, I mean, I thought Justice Kagan's opinion had it right, of course. But to your point before, you know, election lawyers know that there's a trick to this game, which is you want your client to be ahead, and then you want the vote counting to stop. And that, you know, that was the strategy that George Bush pursued in Florida, while also simultaneously adding additional votes to the tally. It was a effort just simply to win at all costs. They won, we lost. The country's suffered for 20 years as a result. And look, there's only one answer. If you're out there listening tonight, you heard John Podesta at the start of the show express his anxieties. We all have one tool that can prevent Brett Kavanaugh from impacting this election. And that's for people to go out and vote. And if we vote and we win by enough votes, then the courts don't get involved. No, Wisconsin lived through this in April, the start of the pandemic, with an election for a Supreme Court justice, a state Supreme Court justice, where Wisconsinians in the middle of a pandemic voted in record numbers and produced a surprise 10-point win for Jill Karofsky on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So this is in the hands of the voters of Wisconsin. They're the ones who can decide if the Supreme Court decides or not.
And I think, I think that's an important point. But I just want to push back a little bit or say this. From a motivating perspective and from a descriptive political analysis, I agree. A Joe Biden national victory of 8 or 9 or 10 points settles the question, right? But in a narrow normative sense, if Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania by 100 votes, when all the votes are counted, and that gives him 270, he's the next president. There's no some special rule that Democrats have to win by more. Like, you win, if you win, you win. And if Bush v. Gore, 537 votes in Florida proved one thing, it's like, there shouldn't be any understanding that Democrats have to somehow pad the lead to actually legitimately take office.
No, Chris, absolutely not. Of course, you're right. And of course, Vice President Biden has a team of some of the best lawyers in the country ready to go to court if needed to establish that a win, if he achieves it, is a legitimate win and to make sure the courts don't set it aside. We're prepared to fight this campaign in the courts if it comes to that. My only point is that it shouldn't come to that.
Right.
And it shouldn't come to that, not because Democrats have some special burden to win by more votes, but because Donald Trump is a horrible president, and Democrats and everyone else, independents and Republicans, should show up at the polls and make a clear statement that the era of Trump is over and that it's time to get this country back on track.
Well, that's
a political conclusion, not a legal conclusion. You're absolutely right about the law, but I'm telling you, I think I'm absolutely right about what should happen next Tuesday based on the Trump record and the alternative Joe Biden's offering people.